Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to do something kind of incredible. We are going to build a grammatical universe from the absolute ground up. We'll be starting with those dry, basic, beginner rules of English and transforming them into advanced mastery. So whether you're looking to polish up your writing or just finally understand why we say the things we do, you are exactly in the right place.
We're taking a world-building approach to language today. Here's our roadmap. First up, naming the world with nouns. Second, the stand-ins, pronouns. Third, painting pictures using adjectives. And finally, pitting things against each other in the comparison game. Let's dive in.
Section 1. Naming the world with nouns.
You know, before we can even have any action in our universe, we literally just need things to exist. Nouns are the absolute building blocks here. We start with the beginner concepts, common nouns, which are general names like river or mountain. Then we scale up to specific, capitalized, proper nouns like the Amazon River. And to introduce these into sentences, we instinctively grab little helper articles like a, an, or the.
Now what's really cool is how fast we can scale up this universe. If we want more than one of something, we just use these rhythmic rapid-fire plural rules. Usually, you just slap on an S. But for hissing sounds, we add es for words like boxes. Got a consonant plus y? Drop the y and add iest to get babies. It's a highly structured system when you really look at it.
Well, as you level up to the intermediate stuff, you hit some messy exceptions because the system isn't perfect. Countable nouns are super easy, right? 1 coin, 2 coins. But uncountable or mass nouns, they totally break the mold. You can't say I have 2 furnitures or 3 advices. You're forced to use specific measure words instead, like a piece of advice or a glass of water. And that distinction actually dictates which quantifiers you're allowed to use.
And then, of course, English is just full of these rebellious rule breakers, irregular plurals. Sometimes you are forced to completely change the vowels entirely, so one tooth becomes many teeth. Sometimes you add these bizarre historical endings, making child become children. Sometimes the word doesn't change at all, like sheep. And my absolute favorite, the foreign origin plurals that force us to use endings like fungi or criteria.
Okay, time for an advanced boss battle. We encounter pluralia tantum, which literally just means plural only. Think about scissors, trousers, glasses, or tweezers. Notice a pattern there? They're all tools or clothing made of 2 symmetrical parts. Because of that, they always take plural verbs. You literally have to say, my scissors are sharp, unless you use the magic workaround phrase, a pair of.
Moving right along to Section 2, the stand-ins, pronouns. Let's see how our world builds from here. Because let's be honest, repeating, Sarah took Sarah's dog to the park because Sarah wanted to play gets exhausting really fast. Enter pronouns. These are our world's shortcuts. They stand in for nouns just to save our breath. They basically handle 2 main jobs. They're either the doers of the action as subject pronouns like I or she, or they're the receivers of the action as object pronouns like me or us.
Stepping up to the intermediate level, pronouns can actually reflect back on themselves using self or selves, but there are 2 distinct ways to use them. Reflexive pronouns are absolutely necessary for the sense to even make sense. For example, she cut herself. If you pull herself out of there, the sense is broken. Intensive pronouns, on the flip side, just add dramatic emphasis. I, myself, bake this cake. You could just say I bake this cake, but adding myself proves you didn't just buy it at the store.
So here's the ultimate advanced grammar showdown, and it's tackling one of the most common mistakes even native speakers make. Who versus whom. Remember, who is a subject, whom is an object. How are you supposed to remember that on the fly? Just answer your own question with he or him to solve it. Who is at the door? He is. Perfect. That works. With whom are you going? I am going with him. If him works, use whom, because, they both end in the letter M.
All right, Section 3. Painting pictures with adjectives.
So our structural universe is functioning, but honestly, it's kind of boring right now. Adjectives are a color palette. These descriptive words give our nouns size, shape, and opinion, transforming a basic dog into a fluffy brown dog. Structurally speaking, they usually sit right before the noun or they land immediately after a linking verb, like when we say the soup tastes delicious.
Moving to some intermediate rules, verbs can actually magically turn into adjectives, but you really have to watch your endings here. You must distinguish if the noun is receiving the feeling or causing it. If you say, I am bored with an ed, you are the receiver of that feeling. But if you say, the movie is boring with an ing, the movie is the culprit actually causing the feeling.
Now, this is wild. This brings us to the hidden, unspoken hierarchy of the English language, the order of cumulative adjectives: determiner, opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin, material, purpose. This incredibly strict order is why we instinctively notice a beautiful, large, old, round, brown, French wooden dining table, without even realizing we're following rules. Mix those up, and any native speaker will instantly know something sounds totally off.
Now, when you have multiple adjectives, you also have to figure out if you even need a comma between them. Just ask yourself this simple dual question. Can you put and between them, and can you reverse their order? If the answer is yes, they are coordinate adjectives that modify the noun equally, like a long, exhausting, difficult journey. Because you could totally say a difficult, long, and exhausting journey, you absolutely must use commas.
Finally, Section 4, the comparison game. Now we're going to take all these colorful things we've built and pit them against each other in the arena. The beginner rules here are pretty simple. If you're comparing exactly two things, you use a comparative by adding ER, like a cheetah is faster than a dog. But to crown the ultimate champion out of three or more things, you step up to a superlative, adding the plus est to make it the fastest.
Now for longer words, you typically add more or the most. But of course, you've just got to memorize the rebellious intermediate exceptions. Good never becomes gooder, right? It becomes better and then the best. Bad becomes worse and then the worst.
For advanced speakers, comparatives aren't just for saying one box is heavier than another. We can actually show cause and effect using the double comparative formula. Think of the phrase, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's this beautiful, almost poetic way of proving that as one thing changes, another thing immediately responds in equal measure.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really strict advanced rule for elevating your writing: parallel structure. When you use than to compare two things, the grammatical weights on both sides of that scale must match perfectly. You literally cannot say, playing tennis is more fun than to play golf, because an ing word is unbalanced against a to word. You got to balance the scale. Playing tennis is more fun than playing golf. Perfect symmetry.
We're going to wrap up this explainer with a pretty provocative look at how these rules actually aren't frozen in stone. Language evolves. Take the pronoun they, for instance. Historically, purists demanded these clunky phrases like, if a student is late, he or she must go to the office. But today, major style guides universally accept a singular they. If a student is late, they must go to the office. It's just smoother and it's more inclusive. Seeing how quickly we all accepted this change leaves you to wonder, what other strict, unbreakable grammar rules might completely change in our lifetime? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the building blocks of our language.